Morning.
I'm excited for today and what God has going on. And we are going to dive into our meeting and talk a little bit more about our theme for this year and some things that are going on for us this summer. So I'm really excited to have you guys here. And let's pray and get started. God, thank you so much for this morning. Thank you for what you are doing in our lives. Thank you for the ways that you're helping us grow and deepen our walk with you. Thank you for the ways that we get to serve small groups at Saddleback, the ways that we get to invest in others and help people find groups and help encourage hosts who maybe are discouraged, or even just reminding them that they're not alone as they serve. Thank you, God, for what you're doing in our church family. And we love you and we ask your blessing on this day. In Jesus' name, amen. Good morning, Al.
Morning. Sorry.
You're an answer to prayer. I close my eyes and I open up and here you are.
I know.
Hey, just real quick as we get started, I want to give a shout out to our newest CLs. They're so new that we haven't met with them yet. I'm meeting with them tomorrow, and I think Quentin and Vicky are going to do some training with them soon. But it's Ivan and Sung Hae. Did I pronounce it correctly?
Yes.
Okay. I've known them for years. They've been around our campus since the Grove days. Maybe earlier.
Yes, I started at Saddleback 2005.
Great. Why don't you guys give yourselves an introduction, because you'll do a better job than me. But tell us how you guys came to Saddleback and maybe a little bit your experience with groups and how you guys are coming aboard the small groups team.
Okay. Do you want... Wow, that's a long story. I'll give you the short version.
Great.
So I moved back to California for my job back in 2004, and then I joined Saddleback at 2005. I became a Christian when I lived in Cincinnati in 2003, working for Procter & Gamble. And so in 2005, joined Saddleback and thought it was just a very comfortable and welcoming church. And then started getting involved immediately, took the classes 101 all the way through 401, joined a small group, started hosting small groups in 2005. And I think I've been a part of at least, I want to say 9 or 10 different small groups since then. And in between that time, I met Sung Hae at work. And at the time, she wasn't a believer. So I did what every smart man would do, which is a little missionary dating. And went after her and pursued her to invite her to church. First and foremost, God was very clear, and not to engage until she asked Christ into her heart, and sure enough, she did. And so we started dating, and we got married, and that was over 7 years ago. And now we have a 2-year-old beautiful daughter that God has just blessed us with. And over that entire time, we've been a part of a number of different small groups, whether hosting or participating in. And we just believe in the small group vision at Saddleback and think it's doing tremendous things in the world. So we think this is a good step for us to start giving back. I'm also very, I'll say this, I worked with, you probably know Jim Brewington, and worked closely with him in the mentorship program, as well as been in contact with him about the small group vision with Saddleback overall. So I have some connection to that as well. And yeah, that's us.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. We're so excited to have you guys on the team and to be a part of our crazy world here. So it's going to be fun. Let's see. I wanted to share with you guys a story. I have a cool little story to share. And after I share this story, if anybody has any other stories or wins or something they want to celebrate from their connecting with hosts or having conversations at the small groups table or on the patio, or something even with their own small group that's a win, wanted to celebrate a win or two. And then if you have any questions or challenges, wanted to, at least, we may not be able to solve them at this moment, but at least want to be aware of them so that we can focus on those in the weeks to come. So let me pull up this story for you. Sorry, I have a lot of windows open. Here we go. All right, so Lexi and Cole, they are a newer couple to Saddleback as far as I'm aware of, and they decided to start a couples small group together. And we launched their group probably a month or two ago, but they hadn't had their first meeting until this last week. And I got an email from Lexi, I think Wednesday, saying, "Hi, Pastor Jim, just want to let you know that we had our first small group meeting last night, and then it went really well. We met a lot of great people. We haven't been coming into church lately. We've been really homesick, so we've been out of town spending time with family. We're having to catch the online service when we can. We hope to be in soon. Thanks for all the support." And I just got really excited for them because, being homesick, being a new couple, new married couple, and not having family, but they got to help launch their own, church family, so to speak, this last week. So I just can see that small group becoming that family for them and helping them bury their roots down into Saddleback here. So just really excited for them. They're young, and they decided to jump in and host a group. So I'm really excited for them on that. So be praying for them if you can think to, because new small groups are fragile small groups. They need a lot of care and attention early on. So we'll be praying for them. Anybody have any other wins or things they want to celebrate?
One of the ladies in our small group was baptized on Easter.
Yeah, that's right.
On Good Friday.
Yes.
And, she was raised Buddhist, and her family here is Buddhist. So it's pretty cool that she's being able to witness to them. So far, they're not at all interested.
Mm-hmm.
I told her actually, Jim, that she should talk with you because she needs some guidelines on how to approach them without being critical or
forceful or anything like that.
Yeah. So I'll talk with you about that later. But that's exciting. Last night we gave her the picture. In fact, I have it on my desk. Do you want to see it? Can I show it to you?
Yeah.
There it is. Jim and Fong. Doing that very well.
There we go. Yeah, that was a fun, that was a special evening. I think it was our Good Friday service. And
yeah, our group volunteered for baptism. It was fun.
Yeah.
You guys should try that sometime.
Yes, volunteering together is good. Anybody else? Everybody's still waking up. All right. Well, keep this in mind in the weeks to come, and as we have more of these meetings, we're going to talk about the wins and the challenges. So as you come across some stories along the way, just keep that in mind as we, I'll remember to share that with the team. So it's always good for us to hear those stories, and it fuels our service. So maybe excluding Quent right now, because Quent and I talk about the challenges all the time, and we're working through some of that. But I want to hear from you guys. If there's any thing that you're kind of banging your head against the wall, or you're having trouble getting something figured out, or there's maybe a group that's having some challenges that you want to, make us aware of that we can help out with, anything like that?
I think the biggest challenge for me is having people respond to my emails.
Mm-hmm.
And especially after the last email that you asked us to send out, I go back now and I see who actually read it. And these are people that I've reached out to that never, ever call back. So it kind of discourages me, and it makes me want to know, what's exactly wrong, why they wouldn't, just reply a little bit. So I pray about it. But it is discouraging, when you keep reaching out and nothing happens.
It is. I agree.
So, Vicki, are you saying that they read it? You could see that they read it. How many read it?
No, I saw that a lot of people didn't read it, and they're consistently not reading Jim's messages either. The successful is not there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of our ongoing challenges, and it's something that Quent and I chat about too. We'll continue to process that more. We'll make that maybe a major point of one of our meetings in the future. Just what are some ways we can increase readership and connectivity with our hosts. So I hear what you're saying, Vicki, and that's one of the challenges across all campuses even. So I think one of the important things is, remember, we got to keep communicating with them, whether they communicate back or not, because it's important that they know that we have them on our radar, and they're not alone. So yeah, it's frustrating because of that response, but we're going to keep figuring out what we can do to increase that.
What about copying it into a text? What do you think about that?
Well, Anne, tell me, absolutely, but tell me the success you've had with text.
I get more response with text. And in fact, I did that mailing this week, and I put at the end of it, I would love for you to just text me a short reply. I got 4 out of 30 something. Those are the 4 that I would expect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also I have a few that I actually text instead of well, I email them, but they're unsuccessful. It doesn't say that they read it. But when I text them, they reply thanks, or it's just something simple.
Right.
Because I do have a few that they'll reply for a text, not so much an email. They're not always on their personal email, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then I also wanted to add that, and it does give you encouragement when you have a couple hosts reaching out to you saying, hey, thanks for this. I have a question for this and this. I have one of my new hosts. He was asking me about mysaddlebag.com. So we're still haven't scheduled it, but we're going to schedule a meet and go over he wanted to know how to add some of his members into My Saddlebag.
Great.
So we're going to go over that. And then we're also going to go over how to add a picture. He says he was dragging it, but it wasn't attaching. I said, well, there's a way you can search it and attach it as an attachment. So we're going to discuss that. So it encourages you to continue, but there are some that unfortunately never answer or reply, or they only reply through text, like Anne was saying.
Yeah. And I think, I want to say it was earlier this year, at the end of last year, we sent out a note to our host with the tagline, praying for you. And we just had a simple, personal, like, hey, you know, I spent some time specifically praying for you today in your small group. Thanks for serving. Signed, you know, your CL. I think across the board, we saw viewership of those emails was up over some of maybe my typical emails that are meant to inform, which don't really, you know, touch their heart maybe personally the way that we would like to. So I know there's times where some of our communication is, hey, we need to inform you of this, but it doesn't necessarily facilitate a response from them. It's just more letting them know about certain things going on, but then mixing it up with a note like that. That's a personal note to them saying, hey, praying for your group, or if there's something you know about their group, hey, I'm keeping this in mind, or I remember this situation you're going through. I'm praying for you in that. And that generally increases the readership rate of our emails as well. So we'll explore that more, you know, in the probably next month, or even right before we kick off fall. We'll really try to tackle that a lot more.
And I also wanted to add that, you know, the emails you sent us, Pastor Jim,
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning, I had a little personal note for each individual one that I met.
Good.
And so I will give them, you know, I will add a little note just to hopefully encourage them to, you know, and those are the ones that actually started some dialogue back and forth.
Yeah. Does anybody here have background with marketing that knows about like viewership rates for emails that are sent to people, like in general, you know, business wise or whatnot, what the readership rate is for emails?
Well, I've had a lot of experience with email marketing, direct marketing, and everybody in general has a real hard time with, in particular, whatever you put in the subject line.
Yeah.
And content is a real problem too. You've got to really be careful with how much you put into the email. And of course you want to catch their attention. So that's always been an issue with email marketing as well. So those thoughts were running through my mind, Jim, when you were talking about what you added in the subject line. So I'll talk to you a little bit more offline about that, some of the thoughts I've experienced. So let me write down some notes and I'll shoot those over to you after the meeting.
Great. I love that, David. Kind of the point that I was going toward, and I don't remember the exact readership rate, but I think most email marketers would absolutely love to have like a 50% open rate of emails.
Oh, yeah, that's,
Of course, we'd love it.
really,
That's pretty high, right, for marketing?
yeah, opening it is different than a response rate.
Yeah.
That's what you really want. And I'll be quite honest with you, a really good response rate would be 5%.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's the challenge is to get them, it's not to get them to open it, it's to get them to respond to it.
Yeah. Well,
And
let's come up with some ideas, David, and we'll bring that to.
I've got a few.
By the way, Jim, I want to say that I really enjoyed that video with Thor.
Yeah, wasn't that great?
Yeah, that's a good video.
On commented on that as well.
Say the last part.
The people that responded commented on that as well.
Good.
Yeah, it was a good video.
So if you guys can help, and for those of you who haven't seen it, it's on the little YouTube channel I have for small groups. And I just interviewed one of our hosts for about 10, 12 minutes. We sat down and talked about a small group before the video. So I had some plans in my head to like do a little interview style thing with him. And so that was our first take, that recording. There was really no edits to it. The only edit was maybe cutting the end so you don't see me like coming back to the computer to turn it off. But it was just a one take, and we asked a bunch of questions of his small group. And I love some of the stuff was like, hey, Thor, were you scared when you started your small group? He's like, yes. Just even simple stuff like that helped the host be like, oh, I'm not the only one that was, nervous the first time I started a group. So yeah, a lot of themes of family in his interview. So if you have a host that's just struggling to, help make those connections in the group, have them watch that video. Because, there's a lot of things that Thor is doing well to kind of, experience a family setting. And one of the things was it took time. You start a small group, it doesn't feel like a family in the first, couple months, most likely. And so it takes a little time to build that family feel. So, but it was a really good interview. So if you think of anybody in the future, I'd love to have a few names of some people I can chat with and do another interview like that, or a couple, or get 2 or 3 hosts to sit down and do a little video again and just ask them more questions. So yeah, keep that in mind. All right, so moving on from challenges, I think, I'm not surprised to hear about that theme, Vicki. That's an ongoing challenge for us, but I'm excited to get some of David's expertise on marketing, and we'll figure out how to increase not only open rate, but response rate too. So that'll be good. All right, so next wanted to chat with you about our theme verse and our theme for this year for our small groups. So we're going to dive into, I sent you guys some notes. So we're going to dive into that for a minute here. And what we're going to do is kind of set up our themes for the year. Typically, so the small groups team, they had the small groups pastors and Steve Logan. We sat down earlier this year and we did a little discussion for what this next year holds for us. And they gave us, let me go back here. They gave us this little coin. I don't know if you can see it, this cool little coin. So our theme this year is health. And then there's all these little reminders on there that I'm going to give you guys are going to be at the small groups table today. I wanted to have these at our small groups party at Vicki's house, but they did not come in time. So instead of doing this in person a month ago or three weeks ago, I'm going to share some of this, and Marie and I are going to share our theme for this year with you as it relates to your group. So I emailed you the notes. It's, I think, on a Word document. So we're going to dive into that here in a second. So there's 2 verses. There's one on the coin, and then another one that I wanted to share is our theme verse for the year. And the one that's on your coin is 2 Corinthians 13:5. And it just talks about how we are to examine ourselves to see if our faith is genuine, to test ourselves so that we know that, God is doing his work within us. That's kind of summarizing what the verse is about there. And so this is just a time for us to think as we're serving as, community leaders, as we're diving in on all of this, what is, it's easy to go through routines and just say, okay, I got to send this email out. I got to do this and that. But, let's check our motivation. Let's test to see what God's doing in our hearts and lives, because it's real easy to go on autopilot. So this verse is trying to help us get off of autopilot a little bit and really think through some things. So the other verse that has always been a theme verse for our small groups team is 1 Peter 5:2-4. You guys have your notes there. Could someone read that passage? 1 Peter 5, 2 through 4.
I'll read it.
Great. Thanks, Ann.
Care for the flock that God has entrusted to you. Watch over it willingly, not grudgingly, not for what you will get out of it, but because you are eager to serve God. Don't lord it over the people assigned to your care, but lead them by your own good example. And when the great shepherd appears, you will receive a crown of never-ending glory and honor.
I love for two things. I want to point out by your own good example in the passage. We can't be a good example without this theme verse of health. If we're not having health happen spiritually in our lives, physically, emotionally, all those things, we're not going to be a good example to our host. And then secondly, it talks about lording it over the people assigned to our care. This idea of God entrusts these folks to us, and yes, there is a responsibility. Yes, we get the name tag, and we can potentially see it as like a position, but God wants us to serve, and God wants us to be humble about how we serve, which is is our first point, learning to humble ourselves. So Saddleback, we like acronyms, so we have an acronym for health. So humble ourselves. How do we humble ourselves? Well, one of the ways we humble ourselves is by learning to forgive each other. If we don't forgive, we're holding on to some lack of humility, so to speak, because we have forgotten that God has forgiven us. Amen. When we remember what God has forgiven us for, we can forgive others. And then learning to just see ourselves in position to who God is. James 4:10, humble yourselves before the Lord and he will lift you up. So as we continue to serve as a team, we got to think about how we can support each other through life's challenges, facing, challenges in our life that may affect our ability to serve for a season. And how do we come alongside one another humbly and support that person as they're going through difficulties or having health issues or whatnot. So just some things to think about as we move forward, having grace, not only with each other, but with our hosts who, we get frustrated because they're not emailing us back, right? We get angry that they don't take the time to return an email. But when we do connect with them, to be humble about it and not passive aggressive in mentioning, oh, yes, I've been trying to email you, or, oh, have you seen my emails, or however you want to be passive aggressive with it. But for us to be gracious with them when they do respond. Also, to think the best of each other, not only as a team, but with our hosts as well. Like your host attention, or when they woke up in the morning, was their intention to ignore your phone call and your email? Probably not. They just might be overwhelmed, or they just may not have the relationship established yet, so it doesn't have the same value to them yet. So we're going to seek to learn to listen, look, learn, and laugh along the way. And as we connect with our hosts, I love that it starts with listen. Let's listen to their story. Let's listen for themes or challenges or common interests that we have with them. Maybe they're a parent too. Maybe they moved here from out of state. Whatever it may be, we can find some common ground. Then Matthew 18 has some great principles on resolving conflict. So as we continue on in this year, we're going to have health, be the focus. And the first point is humble ourselves. And now I'm going to pass it off to Marie, who's going to share our next point.
The E in health stands for examine my heart. And Psalm 26:2 says, put me on trial, Lord, and cross-examine me, test my motives and my heart. So as we're serving in our ministry, it's important to be honest with ourselves about our motives to serve, and to continue to pray that God will use us to help support and lift up our hosts and our groups to continue to glorify God. And so our motives are the why of what we do. And some things that this year, as we think about health and the health of our groups and the health of our ministry, we want to focus on a few things. The Saddleback culture is fast, fluid, and flexible, as you all know. So things will change throughout the year. And we go through times where we think we're going to roll out a campaign, and then that changes, which has just happened this past year. And so we get all set, and we think our groups will have a new study coming up, and then that doesn't happen. And so it's that flexibility of then reaching out to our groups who might be asking that question, because they've too heard through the services that a new campaign is rolling out. So they're wondering as well, and to kind of keep them in the loop as we continue to serve. We want to also look at that we focus on relationships, not the process so much. We have a lot of tools, we have a lot of process, but it's really relationships that help us lead and help us serve our groups as we are looking at our motivations and what are our motives behind serving. And so remembering the values of Saddleback as well. As you all learned in Class 101, the Saddleback acrostic stands for, we're a second chance grace place, all nation congregation, which is so important in our groups. I just had the opportunity to serve at the table a little bit at Easter, and it was interesting to see how many were still coming up asking for, do you have a group that's a Filipino group, or do you have a group that's a certain ethnicity? And there's still such a desire for that, and how are we working to serve that and to make sure that we can respond? Helping our leaders understand doable discipleship and not just hearing God's word, but putting it into practice. Love in action, bold faith, all of those wonderful things about our Saddleback culture and values are things that, as we continue to remember and remind our hosts about those, will increase the health of our groups.
Love it. So the next part is A, is align with purpose. And would someone read that 1 Corinthians 1:10 verse?
I appeal to you, dear brothers and sisters, by the authority of our Lord Jesus Christ, to live in harmony with each other. Let there be no divisions in the church, rather be one of mind, united in thought and purpose.
Great. So as we serve our hosts, if we're all suggesting different next steps for them, we're going to be fragmented. We're going to be moving off in different directions and not being united in one purpose, as that passage is talking about. So we have a lot of great systems and practices here, some great doable discipleship that helps people take those next steps. And as you guys know, one of our most significant discipleship processes at Saddleback is the class system. Obviously, groups play a big role in that too. But in terms of the funnel and getting people started, and what we mean by that funnel is that intentional practice of, okay, they start weekend service, they start getting involved in class, they start getting involved in small groups, and we're experiencing more momentum as they go down the funnel. So our class process is still going to be very important. And one of the challenges that Quent and I are looking through is we have a lot of hosts. What's the number, Quent? 70 to 50 or something hosts that haven't taken Class 101 yet?
Correct, a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
At least 20%.
Yeah, about 20% of our hosts have not completed class. So that number typically grows right after a campaign, like 40 Days of Prayer. But we have trimmed a lot of groups, and we still have a lot of people that haven't taken class. So we're going to continue to walk people through those practices, and we want to equip you as a host along the way, as a CL along the way, to know how to look for those things. So for those of you that have been equipped in Healthy Church, you'll know how to look up your hosts and see what next steps they have. And again, we're not starting the relationship with hi, I'm your CL. By the way, I see you haven't taken Class 101. That's not a great way to build a friendship. But as you build that friendship with them, over time, you can roll out some of these, I see that Class 101 is a great next step for you. And, have you thought about taking Class 101 before? And just get them chatting about their experiences and what they're thinking. So as you see there on the list, we talked about class, small group training, which Marie and I just came up with a date for our next small group leader training. Is it July 28th, I think? Is that what we talked about, Marie? I think it was July 28th.
So we tried to think about, as we're going to talk a little bit later today, our hosts maybe in some of our small groups might take a break from studies during the summertime. That would be a great opportunity for hosts who haven't taken leader training to sort of jump into that. So we're looking at a summertime training.
Great. And just real quick, a couple other things we want to have our hosts keep in mind is this idea of experiencing the purposes in their small group, or equipping our hosts how to do communion in their small group, and then also raising up a co-leader, someone that can serve with them. Man, if our hosts don't have co-leaders, it's a lot rougher challenge, and it's a lot more burnouts likely to happen if they're leading alone.
And speaking of leading, the L stands for lead with focus. So Philippians 3:15 and 16. So let's keep focused on that goal. Those of us who want everything God has for us. If any of you have something else in mind, excuse me, something less than total commitment, God will clear your blurred vision. You'll see it. Now that we're on the right track, let's stay on it. And so as we go into this health year and that theme of health and the theme of focus, and we're serving in this ministry, we need to continue to be focused on that goal of one more. So one more group that turns to an open group instead of a closed group, or one more host who might be willing to lead. As you guys at the table know, so many come to us and want to join a group, and we can't find a group for them. So really looking at then, can we get one more person, that person, to be willing to host a group, so that we can place one more member in a group. And if we start to look at it in terms of that one more, instead of maybe the big picture, sometimes I think we get caught up in all those numbers, but it's really about one more. And thinking of the focus this year of your goals as a community leader, and on your notes, we talk about one contact per month. And Vicki, as I was listening to you and when I was doing some of the CL work, I was frustrated as well with that lack of response. So I was just trying to think about, okay, we're so focused on electronic. And what's the one thing, though, that people will open is a piece of mail. When you get a card in the mail, you open that. And you don't really sort of push that in the delete file or the trash file because it's a personal card. So maybe a couple times a month, pick out a host and just send a little personal note to them. And I would imagine that will be opened. You still may not get a response, but I think, we have to, in my opinion, go a little bit old school sometimes on how we're reaching out and not focus so much just on what's easy to us, which is the text and the email, which is when you're doing 20 groups, that is an easy way to get one mass message out. So we have a lot of tools that we provide for all of our CLs, and I know our new CLs are still going to be learning some of this. We have our pocketbook that sort of walks you through, the CL, being a CL, group manager, our Healthy Church, which is our new staff net, and then as Jim just said, our leader training. And if you're a new CL, it would be great to take that leader training as well, because I think that gives you a really good foundation of how to help your groups. So when they come to you with issues or concerns about how their group is functioning, there's a lot of great tips in that class about how to help your group. And so if you're sort of struggling with some of these tools, obviously Vicki and Quent and Anne and David, some of our veteran, our seasoned CLs can really help walk you through some of these things. And the more of these tools that you're familiar with as new CLs that you use, the better you're able to help the health of your group get stronger as it goes forward.
Great. Love it. All right. So the next part, as we get to the end of our health acronym here, is thinking team. The one who plants and who waters works together with the same purpose, and both shall be rewarded for their hard work. So one of the things that I love about our small groups team is we're not all the same. We have different skill sets. We have different abilities. We have different ways that we connect and have different types of passions in how we serve small group ministry. So one of the things that I enjoy doing when I connect with our new CLs is discover more their passion, find out their motivation for serving on the team, working together to figure out how to equip them to do their job. And it's not that we have to know everything, because we don't, but we start with our little area of our 10 groups, our 15 groups, and learning how to contact them and learning how to do that well. And then also thinking, how can I replicate myself? Which of my hosts do I see that does their small group well? They get it. They have experiences that other hosts could learn from, and they probably would enjoy connecting with other hosts. How can we replicate ourselves and think of how we can develop new community leaders? So one of the big changes for us as we move forward is really shaping more of a leadership pipeline within our small groups team. And so I'm really excited to kind of unveil this with you guys right now. I have tasked Vicki and Quent with being our community leader trainers. Bottom line is sometimes I can be a bottleneck with the training process, and Quent and Vicki and most of the rest of the team, you guys are really great trainers, but I'm having Quent and Vicki start out as our CL trainers. So Quent really excels on the computer side. Vicky really excels on the relational side. And so they're going to work in tandem together, because being a CL is it's a very unique skill set, because we're looking for some of the relational and we're looking for some of the computer skills. So wherever you fall, we want to coach you with, the other side of the equation as well. So there'll also be mentors. We're going to kind of come up with this idea of mentors that are CLs mentoring other CLs. And think of it more as just checking in and seeing how you as a CL are doing. If you have any questions, I think sometimes it can be a little embarrassing for the team to ask me questions, because they may feel like, oh, I should already know this by now. And I'm kind of embarrassed to ask Jim how to send out that email again, or how to do this or that. So if we can connect you guys with other CLs, build those relationships that way, I think that'll help long-term as well. So for you new CLs coming on board, not only are you going to get trained by Quent and Vicky, but they're going to stay your contact for the first 3 months, first 6 months, until we transition you to more of a seasoned CL, if you will. And then Ann Delgadillo and David Rincon have said yes to being those mentor CLs for our veteran CLs. So we will, you know what? I forgot to give the list of who's with who. I'm so sorry. I'll email that out after the meeting. But yeah, so Ann's going to help our veteran CLs, and David will help our veteran CLs just touch and base. So if you have any questions, whatnot. And then Susan Karskadon and Quent are owning the small group interest team. So if you have a passion in the future to help with connecting people to small groups, Quent and Susan are your team members to help empower you to that. I've also asked Ann Delgadillo and David Rincon to be our small group table leads. So they are going to be the eyes and ears and voice of our small group table. And so, as things come up, they're going to keep us in the loop on the table and maybe equipping you to work at the table and so forth. Marie Knight has been and will continue to be our small group leadership training maestro. And so excited to have her continue to do that. I'll continue to do a lot of the shepherding of you all as CL, so that I can connect with you more relationally versus do a ton of the connection of, hey, have you done this email yet? Hey, have you done this and that? More I can say, how's your heart? How's your life going? How can we pray for you? And just come alongside of you a little bit more relationally. And then lastly, we don't have this right now, but I'm looking for someone that can be a part of the team from the social media side of it. As you guys know, we have a Facebook page I'm very happy with our Facebook page. Obviously, it'd be nice to reach the hosts that aren't on Facebook, but we're getting a lot of views and comments and interaction, and it's a great spot for the hosts to kind of feel like family. So I've been posting on there since Catherine Strauss transitioned out. So if you know of a host that's very savvy with social media, let me know, because I'd love to equip them to help run the page. So does anybody have any questions off of that chart there and what that looks like?
I'm interested in knowing how many CLs are on the small group page.
The Facebook page?
Facebook page. I'm not.
I don't know off the top of my head. I think as I'm looking at the list here, Marie's on it, Quent, Vicky, David Rincon, Al Valencia, and I don't know if Leanthe you are, but if it's about half. Half people are on it, half are not. And in my ideal world, it would be a small group blog than a Facebook page. But in spite of what you guys think, because you guys see me posting videos and stuff, I'm not super tech savvy. Quent can tell you, I ask him questions all the time, but I've learned enough to do Facebook groups, and the student guys have taught me how to use iMovie for the videos. But at some point, I'd like to figure out a blog, but I don't know what Saddleback's plans are with all the staff doing their own blogs. You know what I mean? So we're trying to keep some of our communication centralized. So the groups thing is something that's a little bit easier to run with, but yeah, maybe blog would be a better transition at some point, but I just don't know what Saddleback's social media web communication strategy is with all the pastors having their own blogs. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Now, personal blog, yes, but this is more of a work related blog. And so I need to ask them about that. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah. So Vicky, you're on it. Do you see any of your hosts on it?
They comment on it and they respond to Pastor Jim. Yeah. I was on it with my small group after we saw the movie Paul. And I actually have a kind of a follow-up story that might be interesting because the Door, campaign fell through. And so we were studying Ephesians all of a sudden. And then Ephesians was short. It's a really great one by Tom Holliday. And then at the end of Ephesians study, he says, now go to the Drive Time devotionals and then follow through with the Ephesians study. So now we've got our Bibles out. We're going line by line and following Tom's Drive Time devotion on Ephesians. It's absolutely fantastic. Our group is all now so involved with it. More involved than doing a study on a video study with the workbook.
That's cool.
Unbelievable.
Great story.
Yeah.
So I'm going to continue to send out, I'll send out a review today and let you know who your CL mentor is. I forgot to include that on this list here. But I'm really excited because at times I can be a bottleneck on the team in terms of, there's so much information and it funnels through one person and things slow down. So I'm excited to see how that's going to, speed up a lot of things on our team. So Marie, why don't you finish the last point here?
And I think the last point of communication, honestly communicate, is the H, is really what we're all talking about here today, is that the relationships that we build, relationships are based on communication, and we can't have either a strong team, relationships with our hosts, if we're not communicating honestly. So Proverbs 23:23, get the truth and never sell it. Also get wisdom, discipline, and good judgment. So as a team this year for our theme, we just want to make sure we're all communicating with each other. We're being open about maybe the challenges that we're having or the struggles we're having. If you're a new CL and someone's coming to you from a group with a concern that you haven't faced before, reach out to the rest of us because it's probably something someone has dealt with. But to also keep in mind that I think, and what I've heard from Jim and other pastors, is that the small groups team here in Anaheim is one of the strongest. And I think it's because we bring forward ideas. And when you look at things like the small group starter boxes or the mapping, like we were the first ones, yay Quint, to really go in that direction. And so the more that you might have ideas of how to continue to better serve our hosts and our small groups, bring those forward. Because we're only going to get stronger by the group really coming together and continuing to share struggles, but also, like Vicki just shared, successes. Because there's a lot of those things out there, and some of those successes or those comments might seem very minor, but if you're dealing with it, chances are others are as well. So if you think that there should be changes or updates to group manager or church health or those types of things, bring those ideas forward, because we'll continue to work as a group to see what can we implement. Maybe it's a now, soon, later. What can we do now about that challenge? But maybe there's a soon and a later step that we can take together.
Great. And I just want to reinforce that again, that most of the great ideas that have come from this team, like 90% of them or more, have come from you guys, not me. And so if we think that it's just, for Jim to come up with all these ideas, we're going to really, hold ourselves back. And I know you guys know that, but I just want to say thank you guys so much for already sharing your ideas, already bringing stuff to the surface and processing these things together. So don't forget to grab this weekend. We'll have these at the small group cart, probably behind the rack. And so come grab yours and set it somewhere as a reminder of our direction this year. Okay, so switching gears for the last part of our time, want to brainstorm with you guys about summer. I'm hoping to record a video this week, talk like a 1-week study, setting up groups to do summer well together. And the goal behind it, I have a book from a guy who wrote about how God kind of brings us through, or sometimes leads us through, spiritual seasons, like a winter season of the soul or a summer season of the soul, or maybe it's a fall season where a lot of things in your life are reaping a harvest from either good work or bad work that's happened in your life, and that's starting to come to harvest, or maybe it's a spring season, you're going through a lot of change and transition or whatever it may be. So I'm going to really just focus on the summer notes that he has, because he has one of his points is that in the summertime, a lot of the things that we equate with summer are things that you hear described in terms of heaven. So this idea of play and rest and good food and a lot of time with, good friends and all these different themes, those are a lot of themes that we see Scripture describe as heaven. And so just how can we enjoy a little taste of heaven together this summer as a small group? And what are some ideas that I can mention to the hosts of things that they can do together this summer? And I would say this one thing real quick. My hope is that these groups don't say, all right, I'm out for the summer, see you this fall, and they don't stay in contact with each other at all. So if you take a break from the typical small group study, don't take a break from each other. So think of things that you can do during your, maybe your normal meeting time. Maybe it's not every week, but every other week or once a month, everybody's intentionally getting together to do some things together. So anybody have any experiences, maybe personally, or I've heard from a host that has done something, seems to do summer really well?
I have one group that took the train last year, and they went down to San Diego. They had a really good time, but riding the train together is one of the most fun things you can do. I've done it with friends. I haven't done it with my small group, but we talk about it all the time. So sometimes you just have to get one person to go buy the tickets. But that's a really fun thing. And I think that, Al, didn't you guys do a barbecue or something at the beach with families or something? Yeah, all your families?
Yeah, we took our small group down to Carlsbad. My father-in-law has a beach house down there, so we took that. But also another note too, with our small group that I host, we're not taking a break from. We're taking a break from doing studies, but we're not taking a break from small groups. So our main thing is we want to get out and do life together instead of always doing workbooks and studies and this and that. So like last night, we all went out to Brea Bonanza. It's a country festival here in Brea. So everybody but one of our couples were able to make it. So we're just trying to get out more and just do life together instead of just always coming over to our house and doing a study and everything like that. So.
Great.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Al. We have one fellow in our group who always talks about coming to Bible study, and I say, I know him very well. John, this is not a Bible study. A small group is doing life together. And Al said that great. If you read a book of 500 pages, you can summarize it in 3 words, doing life together. And so it's not a chore. It could be a lot of fun. And so I kid my friend John in our small group that he's sorry he missed Bible study. Well, John, we didn't study the Bible last week. We did life together. So have fun, especially during the summer.
Yeah.
Any other ideas out there?
Jim, are you at the point where there is open discussion on anything, or are we still on?
After this brainstorm, then
Okay.
we'll kick it off to that.
Well, we have a timeshare at Newport Coast, and our whole group is going there on the Sunday before Memorial Day. So I won't be at the small group table, you guys. I'm down there hosting a big party, and we have a lot of fun. We have physical fun where we have games. It's a potluck. And then we do some spiritual goals at the very end. So we go around with each other. My husband's the host of our group. And we ask everyone what their goals are for the coming year. And we pray about them. So, and it could be something about eating healthy. It could be taking a class. You know, everybody is so unique and so different in their answers. And then we send out emails every week to our group, and we do follow-ups on some of those goals. And it's kind of just a little special ending to a really fun day.
Love it. Very good. Great. These are some good ideas, because I think a lot of times our hosts, they just don't know what to do, or they haven't heard some of these stories yet. So this is a great thing. So, so kind of the idea that with this is we talk about these ideas and we discuss a little bit, about summer. I'm hoping to give the groups time as they discuss and after the little video to come up with some plans together. Like let's start planning now. Let's put a couple dates on the calendar for the summer. Let's look at a couple different things. And so just giving the groups the chance to, hear for 5-10 minutes about summer, but then to give them a lot of the time in the group to really, plan out some stuff. So I just want to make sure that we have some ideas. And I think I might coach some of this around some of the purposes, even for them to think of one thing that they can do in each purpose together in some way, shape, or form, or just mix it up a little bit so that they're, maybe finding a serve opportunity together, or maybe they're gonna, celebrate communion one night in their small group that summer, or whatever. So we'll figure it out. I'll keep you guys posted, and if anybody wants to be helping out more with that, let me know. But at this point, I'm going to pass it off to Quinn.
Okay, I've got a problem and a proposed solution.
Great.
We cover about half the weekend shifts at the services at the small group table. I just looked just right now. We have 2 for this weekend, so we're missing 2, and that's typical. In the past, we've asked people, could you serve once a month? That hasn't worked. Now, it's interesting that my wife, Jan, is lead on the healthcare ministry. Exactly the same thing. There are about 15 trained healthcare people. They're all CPR certified. Some of them are nurses. Some of them are school teachers. Some of them are physicians. And it shows when they're not there. Just a few weeks ago at the 11 o'clock Sunday service, there was maybe 800 people there. That's typical on a Sunday morning. And there were 2 incidents and no healthcare people. So this is kind of getting bad for them and for us. So one of the healthcare people, Becky, who is a high school teacher, recognized the problem and said, Jan, I can help. So she came up with a plan, and her job is to ensure that there is coverage every weekend. Now, you might think, is healthcare more important than small groups? Well, let me say no. I think it's very important, Jim would too, that we do have a coverage at our table. So what Becky has done, she's contacted everybody personally, explained the importance, gotten their phone numbers. She has a list of everybody. Everybody has everybody's phone number. And come maybe, I'm not sure, but like Friday night, she looks, and if there's nobody Saturday, she'll start going down the list. Jim, can you be healthcare tomorrow? Marie, can you work healthcare? She will not let that list be open. Now, I think this is something that, kind of a shout out to David and Ann, right? The new positions. Look at that list. If Friday comes along, and just like right now, there are 2 services that are not going to be covered this weekend, start making phone calls. We just can't let this happen. It just there's an easy solution to it. And somehow it's like, well, the other people can cover at the table. It's not us. And Jim doesn't like to be mean. Jim, we know what Jim's strengths are, but he is not going to call Vicki up and say, Vicki, why are you going to your timeshare this weekend?
I'll cancel.
Okay, you'll cancel.
Let me clarify.
Kind of a shout out. This should be an easy problem to solve. And so David and Ann, congratulations. Make it work and turn the screws. So let me just leave you with one other problem that's not easy to solve, but this is something that as we talk about getting responses, we can work on. Open groups. One of my jobs is connecting interesteds with open small groups. And I recently went through the logs, have to do this kind of scroll through the whole log of all our open groups. We've got 73 open groups. And what happens sometimes is I recommend a group and to somebody, they come back and says, can't get in touch with them. Okay, give them another one. So I went through all the 73 and I found that 26%, that's over a quarter, have never, ever been contacted even once by anybody.
And what you mean by that, Quint, is that we haven't heard back from them.
Right. Oh, yes. Jim has sent them a lot of emails. It's almost as though you would wonder, are they really out there? Does anybody know them? Are they really meeting? That, I think, is one of the challenges as we're looking for interested, as we're recommending groups.
Yeah. Are
the groups really meeting? And I certainly, this is way beyond the scope of this discussion, but for that's only 19. We've got roughly 15 CLs and 19 never contacted open groups. That's kind of an average of 1 per CL. Maybe that could be a challenge. If the average is about 1, we could say, your job, and David Rincon is right in the middle of my screen, and he's one of my favorites. David, your job is to contact, and if we can't contact them, we should immediately close the group, not as a punishment, but it's like, well, we can't contact them. Let's see if our interested can contact them. That's not fair. So little things like that. I think if we just start doing the easy things first, we can improve our team. The problem of getting people to open email, it was only recently that we had group manager that would tell us this. I'm thinking for the last 10 years, this has been the problem. Nobody's, my response, by the way, was 30% from last month. I got 30% of my hosts opened the email, but probably 10 years ago, 30% would have opened it. Yeah. It's just that's the way it is, as David Urbina told us. That's the way it is. It's not going to get any better than that. So anyway, that's my more than my 2 cents worth. But David Rincon and Ann, congratulations on your new job, and turn the screws. Make us sign up and make us. David does a great job of keeping that sheet up to date, adding months to it, and I mean everybody knows. Everybody's been through training and knows how to sign up, why it's important. And I will say that it is a little tricky. That's one of the trickiest jobs, to answer questions from A to Z that we get from, even I've been around for a long time. I've never heard that question before. So if you're new, if you're listening here and you're new, work with somebody else, because you'll hear all sorts of interesting questions that you would have never thought you would have heard.
Yes. Thank you, Quint. I appreciate Quint's perspective and his ability to see gaps and needs when they're there. And for those of you who are new, when he says a host has never been contacted, he means there hasn't been two-way communication. That there may have been a call or 6 emails in their inbox over the last 6 months, but they have not responded once. And so it's possible that they started a small group, they met the membership requirements, and requested their group to open, and we created it as an open group, and ever since then we have not verified if it's still open. So this is a great task for us, and even for our CL mentors to be a part of Quint, I think, and giving each of our CLs a host or two to reach out to. So we'll work through that. That'll be one of our action items. And then I'd like to end here with talking about what's next for us this summer and what's on my mind for us moving forward. All right, so here's what we're thinking about for the rest of the summer. I would like to spend some time introducing you to your introducing you as a CL to your small groups. Now, I know many of you know your groups, but some of you don't. And so what I'm thinking of doing is probably snapping a picture with you and sending that picture to the group. And for those of you who are on our social media page on Facebook, when we were posting about the new CLs coming on board and we were tagging the hosts that are in Facebook to see the picture of their new CL, our viewership was a lot higher than our typical post. And there's comments and likes and people, thanking them for serving on the team. So I plan on using social media for that again and snapping a photo with all of you. So like Sung-Hae and Ivan, you guys are going to we'll snap a photo tomorrow. And then for you veteran CLs, because Peter and Pat and Tavis have been introduced, but the rest of you, I want to like reintroduce you to your groups this summer and just say a little something about you and post that picture of, hey, do you know who your CL is? Who are the important relationships that are watching your back as a host, and going to introduce you guys to that. So it's already, you've already connected with your host before, but some of you have groups that, don't really know who you are. So I want to try to hit those folks with that correspondence. All right. Yeah.
Taking a picture of every host so that we can see them, so that when we are at church, we might be able to walk up to them.
Yes. And for those of you,
what they look like.
Yes, for those of you who noticed, a couple months ago, I uploaded a bunch of photos that I could find that our hosts have given us in terms of like a prior campaign where we snapped a photo with them and they had a little whiteboard with their name on it. We put a bunch of those in Group Manager, and that helps, but we have a lot to do. So I love your ideas, Anne, or whoever on that, because I don't want to go to their Facebook and post or, find an Instagram or wherever, and then they go to their profile and they see something from their personal page that's on that seems a little intrusive.
I guess we could Google them and get their photos if we wanted to.
Say again?
We could probably Google some of them and get photos from LinkedIn or somewhere, but.
What I'd like to do is try to find the photos that have been snapped on campus. Because they're already here. To me, it feels a little intrusive that they would hop on and that we've been scrolling through their personal feeds to find, their photos. So that's what was great about these photos that I have already was they snapped these photos with us on campus. So yeah, that's a great project. If somebody would like to help with that, I would love some help with that. And even thinking of ways that maybe we snap photos with new hosts that are starting when they pick up their box. We snap a photo with them and tag it to their group right away.
So Jim, we all carry cameras. So yeah. if you not right now, but just tell us, turn around, use this background, take a picture, send it to whoever. Again, if you can delegate that to our photography upload person.
Yeah.
Somebody who knows how to do that and would be interested. That can be routinely done. I think that's a great idea. And I noticed that as I'm going through Group Manager, it's like, oh, those pictures that I think Tim was the person who really promoted that. And for a year, there was nothing done to those pictures. So wow, Jim must have uploaded. That's great. I didn't even know that person that looked like that. So that's an excellent idea. I second your comment about if they're on campus, it's fair game, and if they know we're taking their picture. Otherwise, we shouldn't use anything else.
I'm actually in my Group Manager right now, and I can see some that not have pictures. So, and I like that idea. If I see them at church, I can ask them, hey, you're on mysaddleback.com, there's no image. Will you mind taking a picture? And I can do it myself.
Yes.
And I can think of here some that I can ask, and I'm pretty sure they'll say yes. So that's a good idea of us taking the initiative and just updating that for them.
Great. I love it.
Jim, also, if you're sending our picture out, maybe in that communication, you could ask if they'd like to share pictures so that we could get to know them.
Yes. That's a good idea.
Send a picture.
Let me write that down or type that down.
Yeah, as Jim is doing that, if you are not members, it's kind of the wrong word, of the Saddleback NIM host Facebook page, open your chat window is not open, click on that and you'll see a long URL and just click on that. And I think, Jim, you have to, quote, approve them.
We approve it. We look them up in Group Manager. We get a few people that find it that think this is where they can find a small group. So it's been helping me connect with those folks that don't seem to be hosting a group. So yeah. Last thing as we wrap up, What I'd like to do is after this video gets filmed, because usually at these meetings we have our next assignment through these meetings. What we're going to do is we're going to make this video a big kind of focus for us of, hey, spend 1 week talking about Summer Together as your small group. Here's a 20-minute video, or here's a 15-minute video that we want you guys to watch and make your focal point of your group for 1 week as you get into summer. We'll figure out how to best phrase that. But that's going to be what we're going to be having you guys send out, probably end of May, early June. I'm hoping end of May because summer's quickly upon us. And then, just that CL introduction will be happening in June. And then what I'd like to do for you guys in July, just enjoy the month of July and not have to worry about, some homework, working from home kind of stuff, and just enjoy your July. And then we'll re-engage in August, getting ready for the fall. And maybe there'll be a Doors campaign. I don't know, but we'll discuss that more in probably early August. So, so that's the plan. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Great.
Jim,
Well,
thinking,
yes.
sorry, but as you're talking about that video, Vicky's story and others about what they did over the summer and their summer ideas, maybe just film a few people talking about, very quickly, like 30 seconds of this is what we did as a group.
Yeah, that's great.
Add that to your video of different hosts, what they did. Might be helpful.
Great. I love that. Let me think of how to make that happen, but that's a great idea. Okay, great. Well, that's all on our agenda today. We ended 2-3 minutes early, so that's always good. Thank you guys so much for your time. I know you guys have a lot that you can be doing Saturday morning, and I appreciate your time on this meeting. And so thanks for being here.